Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming this morning. I see a few familiar faces already. My name is Brien Smith, and I am the Dean of the Scott College of Business at Indiana State University. Indiana State and Terre Haute have many similarities to Youngstown State. Many of the residents of Terre Haute would say that a lot of industry has left. There's blight in the city, and that one of the great relationships that the university has is to help the surrounding areas solve problems, which YSU is clearly a leader in that from what I've seen so far. Indiana State University has a mission of access. They're committed to affordability and inclusion. About 25% of our students are students of color. And if you grow and learn at Indiana State, you learn about our mission of inclusion. Today I'd like to talk about a few things and then field some questions from all of you. First, I'd like to talk about why Youngstown and why now. I'd then like to talk a little bit about how I think that my experience for nearly almost 30 years in administration of one form or another has led me to this point, and how I think I can positively affect your strategic plan. So first, why Youngstown? So I'm a psychologist, and I believe that all of us have growth needs strength, and so we strive to satisfy our self-actualization needs, which means we try to find new ways to learn and grow across our careers and across our life, trying to figure out the question, that which I can be, I must be. So I adore the people at Indiana State. My job is challenging, but I'm all the time looking for new ways to grow. And when I look for ways to grow, I look at opportunities and ask myself, do I fit well there? And do I think I can make a contribution in working with great people to accomplish great outcomes? Youngstown State is truly ascendant. If you look at what's happening with faculty, there is an increase in the number of research grants. Youngstown is looking at ways to increase faculty FTE. The students are performing well. You've made amazing strides in student success. Your students are persisting and graduating in higher numbers, and your interface with the community is remarkable. The capital infusion that's come in here, the advanced manufacturing that provides such promise for not only the community, but for all of us in doing research and providing opportunities for our students to grow what is in Youngstown. So it's clear that this is a great opportunity for any provost, and I'm truly humbled that you would consider me as a candidate for that. So a little bit about my background. I hope that you've had an opportunity to take a look at my CV, and I always point out that I have led a number of roles across the time, from assistant professor through chair, through graduate programs, through associate dean, and now dean. So I think that I might myself even find it boring if I went across my lifespan and talked about all the things that I did. I thought instead I would talk about just a few of the things that I've accomplished that I think I'm particularly proud of, and then I'll go in next, as I promised, and talk about how I think I can positively help you achieve your strategic plan. So as a young professor at Ball State University, I was very much interested in solving problems. I have a curious mind. Industrial psychology is really all about organizational effectiveness and finding ways to help organizations achieve their goal through communication, motivation, organizational structure, and processes. And so early on, I was anxious to begin that role of applying what I had learned. And so I became active in faculty governance. And though I was on several committees and led a number of groups, one thing that I thought was inspiring is many of the faculty felt that their voice was somewhat diluted by having a faculty senate, which included not just purely faculty, but students as well. And so when there was a vote about faculty issues, they didn't like the idea that students were voting on things having to do with promotion and tenure. So I asked the group, well, why don't we do something about it? And so the faculty, well, you know, silly Brien, it's in our Constitution. So the next is, well, why don't we change our Constitution? So after a series of discussions, they entrusted me and some of my colleagues to actually write a new Constitution for the Senate, one that included student government, a faculty senate, and a staff senate, and an overarching body of the university senate. So with a team of wonderful colleagues, we went through the process of writing a new Constitution that embodied all of the standing committees, who would sit on those committees and what their responsibilities were. And it was something I'm proud of to look back and say I had something to do with restructuring a big part of something that's very important to faculty. I was twice elected to be chair of the new overarching Senate structure, and some of the things that we did included putting together a new foundational curriculum for the university, something that had not been accomplished in over 40 years. So I'm a big proponent of faculty governance. I think you have to work together toward common goals. Many of my colleagues would often criticize me and say, Brien, why are you so interested in the Senate? All they do is argue about the use of which and that. And I said, well, yeah, there is some of that. But you know, if you have the opportunity to look back and see the things that you created with others, and you can look to one another and say, we did it, it's really quite inspiring. I'm also proud of being what was a founding chair in sorts of the combination of two departments, marketing and management at Ball State. It was a trying times because we had two groups of people, one marketing professors and management professors, that didn't think that we should be joined together and thought we were too disparate to ever make it work out. And so my goal as department chair was to help everyone understand that, look, the basis of our research is really quite similar, and there's so many ways that we have common goals, and together we can work this out. And in this instance, we wrote all new policies and procedures, a salary document for the department, and we reworked the way that we did summer teaching. Finally, at Indiana State University, one of the things that I'm proud of is the way that I have worked with our great colleagues to establish professional development programming for our students. As part of a $6 million Lilly grant, we extended some of the program for Networks Financial, which was a group of high-performing students with promise in leadership. And so we put together programming freshman through senior years, which stresses hands-on learning and leadership opportunities, so learning by doing. So as we psychologists say, we address affectance motivation to give people the confidence that they can succeed. And then I felt uneasy that why are we offering these opportunities to only our scholars? We should offer to everybody in the college. And so we've worked together to shore up the Meese Center for Student Professional Development, which goes a long way down the road to offer opportunities for all students to grow professionally. We have an emphasis on career readiness, not job readiness, but equipping students with the competencies to succeed past their first and second job. And I think it's humbling work, and I think it's work that needs to be done. So those are the things that, some of the things that I've done that I'm most proud of. When I look at your strategic plan, I found out since arriving and talking to Mac, well, actually that's the old plan, we got a new one rolling out. But I think some of the cornerstones of what is still your existing plan are things that I can speak to. So one of the things at Youngstown State is you have a strong emphasis on student success. And likewise, at Indiana State and in the College of Business, we've worked hard to develop programs to do that. And I noticed that part of that is enrollment, so you need to get the right students. Lately, Academic Affairs has taken over the role of enrollment management at Indiana State, and I am on the Strategic Enrollment Council working to develop programs which not only get students in the right numbers, but address student success. So here is the way I see access. I see access is access to the other side of the graduation stage. Access is not giving the opportunity for students to enroll. It's making sure that they graduate. And so if we don't put together programs that help students do that, it's essentially a bridge to nowhere. It's a staircase leading to locked doors with only debt to show for it. So there is, the reason I think that it makes sense for Academic Affairs to be concerned about enrollment is there is a natural interplay between the two. We need to make sure that the kinds of students that we have enrolling in our institutions are the ones that are equipped to succeed. It doesn't mean that we turn away students that do poorly. For example, at many institutions in the Midwest, some statistics suggest that up to 90% of African Americans don't persist. So we don't turn away people, but we find opportunities by working with alternatives in the community to help everyone rise up. But at some point, we have to consider, are these ethical decisions bringing in students right away that we know are not going to make it and we know will be shouldered with tremendous debt? So in Academic Affairs, ours is one of ethical concerns as well as revenue. So to build the stream of students is where revenue, part of revenue comes, in addition to the state and fundraising, comes for Youngstown State. And so we need to look at keeping more students in the stream all the way down. And you know a lot of the techniques that we use. We use intrusive advising. Some people look at meta majors. They look at the first year experience. These are all very important, but I think my role as the provost is not only ensuring that we have the resources to carry that good work forward, but also working with other units within the university, such as student affairs or in the business area, to make sure that the scholarships we offer make sense in keeping more students in the pipeline, to make sure that the students are engaged across campus. So it's the work of everyone in student success. It's the work of everyone, not just people that have that title. Something else that we're doing now at Indiana State is putting together yield teams. So we're going to each college and we're saying, we need your assistance in looking at the students that we've admitted and finding ways to connect with them emotionally so that they'll start their career at Indiana State. And see, that's important because it underscores that we can't have offices doing it alone. We can't rely on a small group of people in enrollment management to have the power and the number of hands to touch students. So I see the role of the provost as not only acknowledging the kinds of strategies that we would use for enrollment management, for student success, but also seeing the bigger picture of how it relates to enrollment management and the bigger picture of how it takes a lot of people to bring to bear what we need to accomplish. And I'm prepared to help provide those resources. I noticed that you have an increasing emphasis on research at Youngstown State. As provost, part of our provost job is just sort of deciding where do we all fit in the mix here. So as we move away from PhD credentialed faculty, you start asking the question, who are our students and who are we teaching? So many community colleges, for example, a large proportion of their faculty will be mastered credentials. We need these individuals. They're talented and they provide a pipeline to the workforce that's necessary. But those of you that have doctorates, you understand that part of the value of your doctorate is that's where you were taught how to do research. And so the difference between the master's and the doctorate degree is research. So as provost, I need to provide a vision of where we stand in this stream, Because if we start saying that we're going to turn our back on research, then faculty salaries would move down because we're not providing the kind of value. Nothing wrong. That's a direction of an institution to go that way. I support research because it provides connections with the community, so we're able to solve problems from a practical perspective in the community. It brings us better students. We interface better with students in the research that we do, and we help students find better outcomes. In the Scott College of Business, I've made a commitment to faculty development. I've essentially said is any faculty that has a developmental need that's related to the mission of the college and the university, we won't turn you down. And I'm always nervous when I say that because I don't think that I have unlimited funds. But through fundraising and generous support from our provost, I've been able to make sure that happened. And I keep details of every faculty interaction as they grow. You see, presenting our research at a conference is developmental, right? Because people, I mean, it's embarrassing sometimes, but they critique us. They point out the holes in what we do. And so we have to be active as researchers. We have to get out and travel and make presentations and interface with our colleagues. That's how we develop in developing our research. Well, that's my whirlwind review of who I am, why I'm attracted to YSU, and how I think I might be able to add value. But most importantly, I'm interested in hearing what your questions might be of me. In the back, thank you.
Can you speak a little bit about your vision as it relates to diversity and inclusion for faculty, staff, and students?
Yes. So, you know, as provost, I support both diversity and inclusion. So diversity is essentially counts, right? So diversity is a metric. Inclusion is a process. So first, on the diversity side, we have to make sure that Youngstown State is a diverse environment. With the students, we need our students to have diversity among each other so they see different perspectives, they can acknowledge people's different viewpoints. And this includes international students. If we're going to say we clearly are committed to global education, we need more international students sitting in our classrooms. But diversity falls short of the goal, because if we're not also inclusive, then our students aren't served. So they feel like, so for example, there's a growing Hispanic population in the Midwest. We have to ask ourselves, do we have the structures to support a different type of students? Do we have language barriers? Is our culture not inviting for these students? So for students, diversity is important, inclusion is important. For faculty, diversity is important because our students need role models in the classroom that show them how they can be successful. And so we need women professionals, we need African Americans, we need Hispanic Americans, we need all types in the classroom, all different kinds of diversity in the classroom to help our students have the right kind of role models. Now, all of this is not possible, again, with faculty unless we have appropriate inclusion. So if faculty do not feel like they're included in discussions, if they feel like they're left out of opportunities, you can actually discriminate against people if only the white males get the primo opportunities. Therefore, your vita starts looking a lot better, but it wasn't that we really held anybody back. So, our processes themselves can be discriminatory. They can be non-inclusive. And so at some level, we need to always reevaluate and listen very carefully to people's perspectives. I always like as a psychologist, I'm very interested in listening skills. So there was the book, Men Are From Venus, Women Are From Mars, or whichever planet that was. But really the book was all about how we communicate differently. So when I come home from work and my wife has had a tough day, as a male, I jump right into problem-solving mode. And so I said, well, what you need to do is you need to tell them, and so I'm trying to solve the problem. And what I don't do is first listen and understand and be empathetic and say, gosh, I've been there before and that hurts, doesn't it? I can see why you feel that way. Well, one problem that administrators have when they deal with different groups is we don't listen first. And so I recall a situation in Missouri where behind one of the African-American organizations, they found cotton balls in the grass. Well, it's just reprehensible, but the story that people often don't tell is the administration tracked down the offending students and expelled them from school. But just like me, sometimes the way I deal with my wife, no one ever listened. They said, look, I took care of the problem. Yeah, you know, so that proves that we're committed to inclusion. No, it made it worse. You have to start by having the ability to listen and develop trust in relationships and be willing to do something about it. Also, I think that to affect cultural change, we need to become bold in the ways that we communicate with each other. We need to take stand against sexism and racism and homophobia whenever we see it, and other areas of diversity too. So we need to label things, for example, as racist when they are in fact racist. We don't do, it's all back about being an administrator and taking care of the problem. You're not taking care of the problem when you discipline someone, and discipline is important when someone does something wrong, but we also need to send a message to the rest of the community that this action is sexist, and that's not who we are, and that's what starts social change. We're not trying to hurt someone's feelings intentionally, but we have to have these tough discussions over and over again to make a change in the culture. And so, as Provost, I will support not only diversity, but also look at affecting cultural change that will be more inclusive. Yes?
A big question on our campus right now is the re-envisioning regarding first-year experience of a fairly new program on campus. What are your thoughts on that? What's your experience, and what do you see as your role?
So this is actually in many ways related to inclusion as well. So oftentimes we don't take enough time to look at what a complex institution that we have, and most universities are very complex institutions. So we don't realize what a huge challenge it is for many students from the time they first enroll to actually make it. My son is a freshman, and I get to hear firsthand all the kinds of things that he's experiencing. But for many students, the mountain is almost too high to climb. I had my eye opened when I talked to a successful young professional. She had graduated from Indiana State, and she related to me as an African American that when she first arrived on campus, that she was told to go see Dr. Jones. I don't know if it's really Dr. Jones, but go see Dr. Jones to help her with her schedule. Well, the only reference she'd ever heard to a doctor was a medical doctor. And so she assumed that she was going to have to go someplace and have a physical checkup. And it horrified her, so she didn't go. Well, she then registered too late. The classes that she registered in were not the right ones. And so she was already falling behind from day one. So the freshman experience is really important because, like other areas of inclusion, we need to spend some time understanding what it's like to see things from a different lens. In the Scott College of Business, we have a Business 100 class. And I oftentimes kind of look at it and say, wow, there's not a lot of business going on here, but what's happening is even more important than that. And so we're talking about an intro to business, but we're also talking about the kinds of things that the students should be engaged in to be successful. So that includes time management and scheduling and everything about being successful. So I think that there's a lot of ways that people address freshmen. Some people say, we should have meta majors and make sure that there's this momentum that we push students. Some people say that we should have co-curricular opportunities. I mean, I think that those are good and they help students moving toward 15 to finish, if you will. But we also can't overlook the assistance that many students need to make some sense of a very complex environment. And so I think it's a very important thing to do. Yeah.
Greg Moore, Cliff College. Could you speak a little bit about the role of the arts within the university, but also within the surrounding community?
Mm-hmm. So I'm perhaps a little bit biased. I have a liberal arts education, and your question was about the arts. So when I was in the 5th grade, I entered my first art competition. I threw some nuts and bolts on a piece of board, and I made it look like this factory that was producing waste, but it was all just nuts and bolts and pieces of scraps, and I painted the thing white and entered it in the competition, and it won best of show. I mean, I was kind of surprised, but you know, there was a message in there, I think. And so when I was in high school, I played a lead role in our high school play. When I moved through college and graduate school, I was a drummer in rock bands, and I've really played drums throughout most of my academic career, and I even play in a cover band now. Shh, just don't spread that around. I have a passion for photography, for portraiture, for landscape photography, and I've also won awards in the area. Well, so what? And so here's the so what. After thinking about art a lot across my lifetime, I've come to the conclusion, because I see things like, I look at this art and say, well, what's up with that? Art is about passion. And so whether it's photography, it's sculpture, it's performance on a stage, art relates the human existence. It relates the essence of who we are. Now, I know what art can do, but how many of us think about what life is like without art? It's almost as if we take passion out of our existence and understanding of what the human existence is. I mean, it's a kind of strong statement about art, but I'm in strong support of art, and particularly at YSU. I mean, you guys have a history, and you're known as leaders in the area. So what a wonderful opportunity for a provost to look at supporting art as it connects the community and it helps people understand the passion that makes humans so special, and to gain understanding about each other through the display of that art. So I'm very much in favor of the arts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask the student affairs question, since I represent that area. Can you talk a little bit about your role as dean, your partnership with student affairs, and how you would see that translated into your position if you became provost?
Right. So unfortunately, because of organizational charts, we have silos. We have silos at universities. We have silos in the private sector, in business, and so they force us to think in silos. So that problem is all student affairs. So you might say, well, I don't know what's really going on in that living learning community, but that's all over in student affairs. And before, when I was talking about the role of the provost in enrollment and student success and how those things are very intertwined, it's the same thing. How can we possibly look at academic affairs and have a passion to support our access mission without having a direct partnership with student affairs? And so there should be direct communication, and we should learn how to build more bridges to make us really see the whole picture. And this involves the community as well. All universities have a very strong handshake with the community. So not only do a lot of our students come from close by, so as you move out 5 miles, 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, you'll see there's more of a heat zone locally where you are. But we also help solve problems in the communities. And there's so many ways that our students are a big part of that. And so I don't think we're going to get away from silos, but part of my role is to make sure that I communicate and work collaboratively with all units across campus.
You talked a bit about how you support professional development around research for faculty. Can you talk maybe about in your experiences with how you supported growth in teaching and learning?
Yep. So, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. So the question was, talked a bit about how I support development in research, talk a little bit about how I support development in teaching and learning. So at Indiana State University, we have a Center for Teaching and Learning, and I publicize that's available for everybody, but we really can't stop there. And so I have a really strong emphasis on development in the College of Business. I even support development for the staff, and so I tell them same thing goes. We have money available for that. So we have a committee, Teaching, Learning, and Research, and what this committee does in the college is they put together specific programming for teaching, learning, and for research. There's a program, in fact, on the 13th next week. It's fairly well attended by faculty. I support flying in speakers. I support providing lunch for people to come. It's an enticement for them to come. So I think it's important that we continue to grow and develop. I told someone that I had the sad experience one day of looking down at my notes and literally noticing that they were turning yellow. We always talked about, professors' yellowed notes, and it was sobering. And so I threw away my notebook and committed myself to pursuing continuous improvement. And I think that assurance of learning is directly in support of that. And so I encourage faculty to be engaged in assurance of learning and to be partners in looking to see how our learning impacts outcomes that we as faculty have decided are important. And so I provide similar support for assurance of learning. It's a kind of a partner handshake with direct development, but it's something that's so important. Let's don't wake up and realize that our methods are outdated and the content that we're teaching is turning yellow.
I'm Nancy Wagner, the chair of the Department of Nursing. As you know, healthcare is growing in every university. What is your experience of maintaining partnerships in the community or creating partnerships in the community to maintain and grow our programs?
So the question is, what is my experience in working with the community to maintain and grow programs? So particularly in the College of Business, but this is extendable, and I'll tell you why. I have a strong vision for including industry in everything that we do. So we went through a while where with our student professional development, we were inviting managers and CEOs of businesses to come speak to our classes, and I thought it was a great thing because it helps support the development and advancement of the college, and our students are learning. But as I thought more about it, I started thinking, no, we need to involve industry more. And so I set a goal in my mind is that I want to see members of industry literally hanging out in the college, so that we have this interplay. And here's what's important: where we listen to what their needs are, and then we reflect personally on how we're meeting these needs. So the first business school was started at the University of Pennsylvania in 1890, and there was no such thing as a business professor. They didn't exist. There were no PhDs, and so professors from the arts and sciences area went in the community and they asked them, what are the jobs to be done? And then so they put together a curriculum to where the students would have direct career pathways into industry. It's a business example, but it should be an example of everything that we do in a university setting. We need to interact with the community and listen to what they're doing to decide whether what we're teaching has the impact that we think it is. And this can be achieved through advisory boards. I think that every department should think about having an advisory board to keep their curriculum relevant. But moreover, I think it's my role as the provost to work in the community and meet with leaders of not-for-profits, business leaders, other educational outlets in the area, and use that discussion to help form alliances so we can all rise up together and help meet positive outcomes for the community. Yes.
Could you just, Ray Schaefer, College of Business Administration, could you give us your thoughts briefly on accreditation of programs across campus?
The question is my thoughts about accreditations across campus. So from the College of Business, you're aware of AACSB, and there's many other areas that are accredited, including the university as a whole. I always tell the story that it's so much work to put together all these manuals and these documents in your self-study. And when I first became dean, I was shocked to find out that all the faculty in the College of Business saw accreditation as something that the dean took care of. You know, we don't really know what it is, but you know, the dean over in his office, you know, that's the person that's supposed to take care of that. And I thought, wait, I don't write the research articles, and I don't teach classes, and I can't do assurance of learning by myself because it should be a corporate effort. And so one of the first things that I did was talk to faculty about their role in accreditation. You know, neither at the university level nor at the college level is this an isolated activity that takes place behind closed doors. Assurance of learning, for example, is definitely something that can't take place behind closed doors. You shouldn't have a committee that's over assurance of learning. Faculty own the curriculum, and they should own the assessment. They should look at whether the goals are being met, and they should meet corporately to decide how they're going to address that and you know, give evidence of how they addressed it. The clincher for me, though, was many years ago, a professor asked me, so if you could not be accredited, so you know, in business, AACSB is the gold standard. You think I can't imagine what it would be like if we were not. If you could have the choice not to be accredited, would you still do all this anyway? And I mean, I'll admit, my first thought was, well, no, I wouldn't do it. It's so much work. But then I started thinking about what the value of accreditation is. Accreditation is, first and foremost, continuous improvement. It's a reflection on your mission and whether it's appropriate and whether or not corporately you are moving that mission forward. It's also an opportunity for us to reflect individually and grow individually in ways that our peers think that we may not be meeting the mark. So constructive criticism, if you will. It's also an opportunity for us to examine best practice. So accrediting bodies offer us the opportunities to look at what works and doesn't work at other institutions. It also gives us the opportunity to network, not only with accrediting bodies, but with other schools as well. So it broadens our perspective, and it's very important. So just like us individually, would we choose not to grow and develop? The same for universities. Choosing not to seek accreditation is saying you choose not to grow and develop, and I don't think I'm willing to go there.
If I can just quickly follow up, how would you as a provost support accreditation process?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, you know, there has to be data. So one of the things that I'm looking for right now in the College of Business is, with the 2020 visit coming soon, you know, we have to keep reviewing our data and make sure that we're lined up. And so we need to have some capacity for doing that, whether it's an individual or institutional research, but we need to have a way of having a steady stream of data. So as much as I'm capable of doing that, I'll support that. The next thing that we need to do is support learning around accreditation efforts. So we can't have a situation where faculty think that this is something being done in the provost's office in isolation, but we also can't expect faculty to know what to do unless we tell them what to do. And so I support efforts in helping faculty understand what accreditation means, how it's accomplished, and what their specific roles are in doing so. So if it's a priority of the institution, you have to support it with resources.
Well, only if others don't, I had a chance to. Okay, so then I guess I'm wondering a little bit about the public school system in Terre Haute and the university's relationship to that. We have a very challenging public school situation in the city of Youngstown. It's under a state takeover. So what's sort of the current state of your relationship with the public schools, and what can you envision the role of the university being in, well, frankly, in intervening to some extent?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, in this case, K through 12 education, what should the university's role being, acknowledging that here locally there's a challenging situation, and what is the relationship with Terre Haute with the school systems locally? The school corporation in Terre Haute is very strong. There's just one corporation for the county, and the student scores across the state are very attractive. So it's a pretty strong situation. But we achieve that by a strong relationship. So Indiana State is in its history a normal school, and so we were all about teaching teachers. So any business education that existed was teaching business, accounting, marketing, but teaching teachers how to teach marketing and accounting in the school system. So we have a long history of relationship. In my previous institution, Ball State University, both Terre Haute and Ball State have been through a situation where they've seen a lot of industry leave. In Muncie, it was Borg Warner leaving. And so that has resulted in both cities a good deal of blight. In the case of Muncie, their school corporation they were so in debt that the state has come in and taken over it. And Ball State University is essentially assumed the role of administering the school. My response to that is fantastic. So that's what universities do. They're partners with the community. I'm a big proponent of hands-on learning, and so especially in education, it gives a laboratory experience for our students to help. As professors who engage in research, it gives them an opportunity to engage in research and have something that can be published about successes. So I think there's a great opportunity, and I think it's one that you have to embrace. You're doing so many great things here in the community. So many new structures. There's so much excitement about approaching the completion of a $100 million campaign that's not even over yet. All this excitement, but to really seal the deal, to have people move to the area, you got to have jobs, and you got to have a good school system. And so I think it's really an obligation that we have to support that turnaround.
We have time for one more.
I have a question. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about how you would support, promote interdisciplinary programming on campus?
Yes. So I have some history with interdisciplinary programming, and it's related to your question. So just recently we were successful in attaining probably around a $3.5 million grant from the Woodrow Wilson Foundation to start an MBA in educational leadership. Now, many colleges of businesses have educational leadership program. What makes this one different is it's all about teaching administrators in K through 12 education how to run the school corporation like a business. And it's really the strategic planning component of it, but it's also operations management as well. And so Art Levine, he's over the Woodrow Wilson Foundation, came to campus, and he was skeptical that we could ever pull this off. He said, really, I've got to know that this is going to be a relationship between the College of Education and the College of Business. And we use many examples of collegiality, and it's been seamless. We have both professors of education teaching in the classroom, as well as those from business as well. But overall, I'm a strong supporter of interdisciplinary education for the same reason I'm a strong supporter of a liberal arts education. And I believe that bold-faced terms in books relate to nodes in our brain. That's where the facts are. Between every fact in our brain is an associated network. Together it's called a nomological network. And so we understand the world around us better when we have a strong nomological network in our brain. And so interdisciplinary studies affirm the fact that when we leave our college, we don't solve problems in a vacuum. We work with others, and we form teams with others. And I am in strong support of, for example, taking a project university-wide and bringing together students from all different kind of disciplines to help solve that problem. That's the way we learn by doing. We gain motivation. It's a path to a career, and it helps us provide the problem-solving skills that we'll need to be successful in life.
Thank you so much. We're out of time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.